We're so proud of them. Thank you. Beautiful song. Up, up. Now, right there is one of those vulnerable moments, right? Oh, I sat down too quick. Pop back up. Oh, funny. So, I'm talking today about vulnerability, so you can imagine how my last few weeks have been. Just knowing that this is where we're going today certainly sets up life experiences. And so there's been a couple of times I boldly decided to speak to things that I was squirming away from. And when I did, I went back to the same habit way I would always do. Oh, I think I was a little hard. I think that truth came out a little kind of mean. But actually, when I reflected on it, it was a truth that needed to be spoken. So what I share today, I just invite you to continue to kind of whirl around in your own experience. Where can I speak my truth? And speak my truth in such a way that I'm being bold with spirit, filled with love, and knowing that this word needs to be spoken. And watch the healing and watch the transition that takes place when you face your vulnerability and know that you walk in God's grace when you choose to speak truth. So the title of this talk is it a strength or is it a weakness? And it's both. Vulnerability can make us feel very disempowered. But when we turn to it, as I described in the first service, there's this concept of turning 180 degrees. And if I turn and face my vulnerability, face my demons, my weak spots, when I face them, when I stand on this stage with the butterflies in my belly and let them fly out of my mouth as wisdom, no, it's what God is asking of me today. So we shift. We say, what is my purpose today? What is my purpose today? I'm going to share some brilliance from Reverend Heather Clark from the Capistrano Valley Center for Spiritual Living. And reminding you that as I speak, all of these tools today that I offer to you is to focus on our ability, all of our ability to be truthful and to get real. And there is, in her words, often our magnificence. You know, that's one of our ideas, is to uncover our magnificence, to reveal that truth of our nature. But it's covered with false beliefs. That's why the classes are so empowering. And sometimes we experience a separation and a fear, and we feel like we got to control all our circumstances. And who we believe ourselves to be is continuously broadcasting itself into the law of cause and effect, a very strong principle in the science of mind teaching. It's becoming form and experience. And we are meant to live a life, though, of deep contentment, freedom. And when you walk in this way in life, to take your vulnerabilities with you and just walk and accept the truth of your word, and the power of spirit and love within you is stronger than that fear. When you live that courageously and wholeheartedly, when you actually accept that, you're free. You're absolutely free. It's powerful. So we're here to awaken to our magnificence, to live courageously, and to know your true nature, the deep self, that part of you that does not really need to be protected at all. And we've adapted these ways. We've been very skillful in a lifetime. We started when we were so young to start to build our armor. I'm gonna make it through kindergarten. I got one of these on the back of the ear because I couldn't stop talking. And already I didn't like her, Miss Nesbitt. It was like, I cried and clung to my mom's big skirt with big balloons on it because I didn't want to go to kindergarten. I didn't know those people. I already didn't like them. And so there I am, made one friend, and I get flicked on the ear. How's that? What's that all about? But I carry that with me. There's your first armor. Well, we're not going to like people like her. So when I see Miss Nesbitt out there, I shun them. But why? Why? Because she hurt me in a place where I was vulnerable, I thought. But so I digress. I've got so many of these, we could spend hours in a retreat on my vulnerabilities. But I want to share with you Brené Brown, who is our source of inspiration this particular month in her book, Daring Greatly. She says to remind us that vulnerability is not weakness necessarily, and the uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure we face every day, it's not optional, right? We're human, living a human experience. It's not optional. It's not optional. Guess what we're born with? Emotion. Yeah, emotion. And emotion, the whole purpose of emotion is to make you move. Emotion is a watery, beautiful source of spirit. It is to emote through you, and you are called to feel everything that you feel, to move it through you. But what we tend to do is go, whoa, there's that. Let me stuff it over here with some cheese puffs. Let me smoke this one away. Let me drink to it. Let me get too busy so I don't have to think about it. Whatever it is, we're very skillful human beings, and we have learned these ways to mask our vulnerabilities, to develop an armored way. To create, what happens with that is a false, fake self. Because we're afraid to get hurt, and we're afraid to be hurt, and we're afraid to hurt others, and so we start this protection. But the truth of the matter is, it's a very spiritual principle. To be willing to be vulnerable will lead to courage, compassion, and you truly will be connected. So, Brené Brown's words, our willingness to own and engage with our vulnerability determines the depth of our courage and the clarity of our purpose. The level to which we protect ourselves from being vulnerable is a measure also of our fear and our disconnection. It's a lot to think about. So her invitation is to live wholeheartedly, to engage from a place of your worthiness. Worthiness starts right down in here, and we know when it's triggered, because we can just feel a stomach ache, or we can close off. And we can think that we're faking everybody, but it shows up, right? It shows up through our eyes. So our eyes are mirror to the soul. So when we try to contract or flinch, it shows. And you need to know, through all life experiences, you are enough. Because God is all that there is. And when you have that tremor of uncertainty, dive in deeper, because God's right there. God's got your back. God's bigger than anything that you're experiencing. So her invitation is to cultivate courage, compassion, and connection. To wake up in the morning and think no matter what gets done and how much is left undone, I am enough. I am enough, no matter what gets done or is left undone. Yes, I am imperfect and vulnerable and sometimes afraid, but that doesn't change the truth that I am also brave and worthy of love, and I belong. I belong. Such a healing idea, concept, I belong. So a definition of vulnerability is the capable of being physically or emotionally wounded, open to attack or damage. Sounds so scary. I'm willing to be open to damage and attack. But what is the medicine that you take? Tell the truth. Face your fears. And when you live in the integrity, that integrity, you're living in your soul. You don't have to try to escape yourself. You are called to feel what you feel, and in a few moments I'm going to call Damien down to lower the screen, and I want you to feel what you feel, and these are tools that you're going to be looking at. One, there's 3 little clips here. I invite you just to sit back, open your heart, and let it feed you. Let the messages that stir from your soul come out of that protective place and invite you into your heart to know true empathy, compassion, and love.
Big bucks, no whammies, no whammies.
Even this is vulnerable.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, I'm down. I know what it's like down here. And you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no. You want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with "at least." Yeah. And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
So those of you that are in the medical field live that every day. You go to work, and that last scene touches me so deeply because I've been at the Shasta Regional for 40 years. 40 years of walking, standing silently next to suffering and next to joy. And so, yes, I do have a very vulnerable heart, a very sensitive heart, but a very encouraged heart, because through all of those experiences, I've seen all of us lean into one another and not fix things. But what's called for here is one of the tools of just generously listening. That was a quote from Dr. What's her name? Brenham. And she talked about that in a practice. She's a doctor, and it's generously listening. Think about that as you try to find your way with this. To know that when you pay attention with generous listening, there's no comparing, no judging. And I'm inviting you, it's not just about with the other, this is with your soul. Generously listen to your own soul. Because we've gotten in the habit sometimes of not listening to anyone, not even ourselves. So how you generously listen is to pay attention first to the way your soul is speaking to you through the God-given gift of emotion itself. And with the spiritual tools that we study and we invest ourselves in, we also don't want to use those to spiritually, as it's known, spiritually bypass. That's a term that was actually quoted by Robert Augustus Masters in his writing. Because when we spiritually bypass anything just by saying, oh, it's all good, because I'm good, I say that a lot to try to get over the pain that I'm feeling. But you know what? Sometimes that's invalidating your pain. It's invalidating human pain. So some of the other ones that we can sometimes say is, well, you created this, fix your thought. Ow. You know, where's the empathy there? Where's the compassion? So we turn from fear to love itself, to see what is really, really going on inside. Anytime we have a trauma, anytime we have an experience where our heart is touched, please know it's just Spirit asking you to tend to your heart. These strong emotions need to move through us, like I said. They are pure energy forms. They are God's gift. Pure energy. You get to feel. You're not numb anymore. You're going to walk out of here awake and spiritually touched in such a way that you dissolve that sense of being numb and closing down this beautiful heart that feels all that there is. So watch yourself in any moments of avoidance, distraction, any addiction that you might be playing around with, anything that separates you. Start living with your true self, not beside it. It's right there. So you want to live with it, in it. Brene Brown speaks to when we lose our tolerance for vulnerability, it becomes a weakness. And at the core of that is a level of anxiety, fear, and shame. But when we can stand in our vulnerability, it gives birth to joy. That's powerful. That's powerful, because the other side, these God qualities of love and joy and beauty, they're right there. And when we can allow ourselves to have the faith of understanding, the conviction that this too shall pass. I have friends. I have the center of spiritual living to lean into. I have a Save a team to join. Whatever calls to you. You recognize that you no longer are living in this, chronic disappointment, this low-grade disconnection, trying to be perfect and trying to please everybody. You begin to feel, I am enough. And we allow ourselves to let go of that part of us that just tries to numb it out. So practice generous listening, practice being grateful, and keep yourself so connected to that reservoir of joy and love. When you feel shame or you feel the fear, recognize, oh, I'm moving towards a disconnect here. Let me tap into my spiritual knowing. Let me feel this okayness with being imperfect. There's an article that I read in the first service about awfulizing. I thought that was an interesting word, awfulizing situations until we become paralyzed. So here spiritual practice comes to your door again, comes to your heart. Maintain this stillness. Listen for your thoughts and the emotions as they rise, and know that they too shall pass away. Begin that generous listening without having to respond, and allow yourself to have some guidance as needed. Find your power, remain with one another, remain with each other until you find that truth. Live wholeheartedly. I just love that expression. There's the invitation to stand in your center and tell the truth. So connect with this internal wisdom, guide yourself, correct and validate yourself with respectful ways, rather than relying on anything external. Validate within. And when you feel that deep sense of contentment, and here comes all the teachings flooding into my mind of years of study of yoga, the principle of santosha and satya is to tell the truth. It's what Gandhi lived on, his deep spiritual principle. Tell the truth to yourself, to one another. And what happens when you do so, santosha? A deep, deep, abiding, never-ending level of contentment. With open arms, you will feel this sense, and as it rises in you, and you will thank it and congratulate yourself for renewing your faith. Where? Not out there, in here. Renewing your faith in yourself. It's so empowering to know your spiritual truth and to walk in that wisdom and to walk in that light. Trust it. Always trust it. Trust in those that you love. If they don't know how to generously listen, teach them the way. Santosha, satya. Honor yourself. Honor yourself. And behave in a way that you can feel proud that you're living with your true self. There is a moment of telling truth that sometimes we think will lead us into uncomfortable places. But listen to this story of Carlos Valles. He was staying with an Indian family, and they shared meals all the time. He was happy to be in their company. The woman of the house took care of all the meals that were always a variety and very tasteful. And she always watched his face for what kind of reaction he was going to have to her cooking. And since she was an excellent cook, I could afford to let myself go and allow my face to show delight at all her delicacies. But one day, however, there was trouble. A favorite dish of hers was a pasta-like flour cake served with a pungent sauce. When the dish is prepared, it takes up the whole meal and nothing else is served for that day. I have a fairly universal taste, and there are a few preparations I can't stomach, but this was one of them. That set the stage for the showdown. I sat cross-legged on the floor in the kitchen, and the large meal dish sat in front of me. I looked up for the menu and saw the housewife with that obnoxious preparation in her hands, ready to serve me with a large smile and joyful announcement. "See what I have prepared for you today? You like it, don't you?" A nice plight I was in. If she had mentioned her culinary plans earlier in the day and asked my opinion, I would have expressed my reservation, and the menu could have been changed in time. Again, if there was something else to eat, I could decline what was to my taste and make up for what was this, and make up with the rest. But I knew that there was only this one dish, and I genuinely disliked it. And I was being asked about the moment of being served. What was I going to say? What would you say? His first impulse was to lie plainly and say, "Who does not like it? Oh, such a good dish. I've eaten a number of times and I will fully enjoy it. Ah, give me a full helping." I have told such lies many times in my life, and one more would not make any difference and would certainly get me out of this quandary. Many times I have eaten dishes I do not relish, and nothing would happen if I did it once more. So I was quite ready to put on that mask and eat and praise the food. But then I woke up. I knew the woman and I trusted her friendship. I fancied the adventure, so looking up at her with tenderness in my voice, sincerity in my face, I said, "I wish I could tell you I liked this, and I certainly appreciate your special care for thinking of me today with today's menu. But since you asked, and with the sincerity of your very affection inspiring me, I have to say that I do not like this dish. I can eat it willingly, but it definitely is not to my taste." Well, you can imagine the scene that followed. The regrets, the proposal to get food from the neighbors, my refusal to have her do anything, her resolution never to do it again, on and on and on and on and on and on. So, but what happened was, for one thing, our relationship grew in intimacy and confidence as I had dared to speak the truth, and then they took it sportingly. My credibility grew, and the future, when I praised a dish, they knew I meant it, and because they knew that I had the courage to speak my mind frankly. So think about that. Speak your truth. But you have to stay for the Seva celebration. So the doors are locked. You are contained. It will be fun. It will open your heart. Please stay. And we have some music. Thank you.